Hi everyone, welcome to my third update for 2023 Pendless Eyeshadows. This project was created by Alexie. I'm going to leave her channel in the description box if you're curious to see how she does this project, or did. I don't think she's doing it this year. But either way, the way she does it is quite different from the way I do it. So my rules for this project are I'm rolling in 5 eyeshadows out of my whole eyeshadow collection, and my goal is to hit pan on them. I don't really have any usage goals. My only goal is to hit pan. And once I've done that, I can roll the eyeshadow out and roll in a new shade in its place. And I also have one focus palette, and that one I hit pan on one shade from that palette and then I roll in a different shade from that palette. So that's basically it for my rules. Yeah, I guess this is a pretty exciting update because we have a few pans, and also, spoiler, we will be rolling in a new focus palette finally. So yeah, let's just get into it. But as always, before I get into the eyeshadows, I just want to remind you yet again that the war in Ukraine hasn't ended yet. So if you would like to help, I will have a few organizations listed in the description box, so you can check them out. And if you are comfortable with donating, and if you have the funds, you can pick the one that you're the most interested in supporting. If you do end up donating, thank you so much. It means the world. Any help is important right now, so whatever you do, thank you. But I guess that is all I'm going to say. So let's just move on to our first eyeshadow. Okay, so the first shade I'm going to talk about comes from my, I guess, focus palette, but a focus palette that's not going to be a focus palette anymore. And this is Me Menu by The Balm. And since I already spoiled it, I did hit pan in the shade I was supposed to hit pan on, and it's the shade Matterosin over here. I hope you can see this pan. It's super tiny. Let me just try. Okay, I think you can see it now. It's super tiny. I used this shadow 31 times, and this is the kind of pan I was able to hit. So I hit pan on 30 uses, but it was so tiny that I was like, I need to expand it at least a little more. So that's what I have. And it's something. It's a pan in my book, so I'm just happy to have pan in all of these shades and finally to move on to a new focus palette. If you're wondering, like, you don't have pan in this shade. Well, the original shade, so the shade that you see here isn't the original shade from this palette. It's the one that I repressed, and before I repressed it, it already had pan in it, so I count it as a pan. You might disagree with my with the way I go about it, but I just wanted to put this palette away for a little bit. So yeah. Oh, and as you can see, I also used up this shade completely this month, which is pretty exciting. It does reduce the number of pans that I have in my collection, but I guess I don't mind it. I'm glad to be done with this palette at last. I've been working on it since last year. So yeah, very happy to be able to put this away. Oh, and here's the swatch of the shade that I was panning. It's a very nice and useful, like, mid-toned brown. So it wasn't really that difficult to use, but these shades are really deep, so yeah. So yeah, we will be rolling in a new focus palette. So we'll be doing that after I talk about all the shades. So let's just move on to the second shade. So the next eyeshadow I'm going to talk about comes from this palette, which is Colourpop times Raw Beauty Christie at First Sight. The shade that I have in this palette is called Amanita. I've used it a total of 11 times, and here is what it's looking like today. Does it look like I used it 11 times? I don't think so. I've complained about this already in the previous updates, but this is a very hard pressed and pigmented shadow. So yeah, it's the one that will take me a while. But I guess you can see like a little bit of a dip starting to form. I don't know if it translates on camera, but yeah. I don't know what else to say. So here's what it looks like swatched out. As you can see, it's a very nice shadow. It's like a wine colored matte, something like that. And I do quite enjoy using it, but it's not something that like you can use with every look, at least for myself, because I personally, I've talked about this before, but I like to match my makeup to my clothing, and I don't really have that much clothes of this kind of color, so yeah. So I don't know when I'll be able to hit pan on the shadow, because Colourpop, these tiny Colourpop pans, they are pretty deep, so yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know what else to say, so let's just move on to the next shade. So the third shade in this past month color story comes from this palette, which is Too Faced Pumpkin Spice. The shade that I have from this palette in this project is called Want a Piece of Me, and I used it 10 times in total. And here is what it's... oh wait, I forgot how reflective it is. Let me just grab something to cover the... As I was saying, here's what it looks like today. And as I hope you can see, I did hit pan on it this month, which I'm very happy about. I think I mentioned last update that as one of my goals was to hit pan on the shade, and I did that, so good job me. Yeah, very happy to be rolling this palette out. I did quite enjoy using this shade. It's very pretty. Here is a swatch of it, by the way. It's like a dusty lilac shimmer. It's not the most sparkly kind, but it's still very pretty and very reflective. It's also not the best formula. It's very crumbly, which maybe helped me in hitting pan on it. I tried my best not to waste any product, so I like picked up the little pieces that fell off, but I still managed to hit pan on it pretty fast, I guess. 10 uses isn't that much, right? So yeah, we'll be rolling in a new shadow in its place, which I'm very excited about. So let's move on to the last two shades so we can do that. So penultimate shadow in my color story is one that comes from this palette, which is Red Dragon by Judy and Odins Eye. So the shade that I have from this palette is called Serene, and I rolled it in last month, and since then I used it 5 times? Yes, 5 times, and here is what it's looking like today. No pen, but I guess we have like a bit of a pen or I mean a bit of a dip for me. But nothing to write home about yet. Yeah, here's what it looks like swatched out. It's a very pretty salmon, like salmon-y color. Yeah, it's very nice and great quality, as most Odins Eye eyeshadows are, so it's been a pleasure to use it, but I don't think it will be one that I will hit pan on quick because it's a good quality shadow and it's not powdery or anything, so it might take a while. I know that Odin's Eye pans are not like crazy deep because I've hit pan on two Odin's Eye shimmers, and it didn't take me that long, so I have my hopes for this one. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, so let's just move on to the last shade I have to talk about. And finally, the last shade I've been focusing on this past month comes from this palette, which is Dido Cosmetics Athena, and the eyeshadow I've been working on is the 11th, right? Yeah, 11th shade in this palette. This palette doesn't really have names, so I'm just using the numbers to refer to it. And I've used it a total of 3 times this month. Just like Serene, I rolled it in last month, so yeah. Here's what it's looking like today. As you can see, we also don't really have a pan in it, but I feel like we have a dip starting to form. We're a very tiny one. I've never hit pan on a shade by Dito, so I have no idea how deep they are, but something tells me that they aren't that deep. And this matte is much softer than the one from the Odin's Eye palette, so I have a feeling I might hit pan on it before the Odin's Eye shade, but we just have to see. And here is a swatch of it, by the way. It's a very pretty kind of mossy green, like a mustard, but a very green mustard. I quite like it. It's not the kind of shade that I wear a lot these days. I used to be really into these kinds of colors. But yeah, so these are all the shades that I've been working on. Here's what the color story looks like from the past month. It's very pretty. I really like it. I think it was a really good one. So yeah, I'm kind of feeling a bit melancholic to have to part with these with this like selection of shades, but I'm also excited to see what the random universe has in store for me for my next month color story. So let's just see what happens. Oh, and one more thing that I wanted to share with you before we roll in our 2 new shades. I hit a bonus pan, and it's in this palette, which is Smoky Glow and Midas collab, and the shade that I hit pan on is called Basic, and it's this white. I hit pan on it today. So yeah, we have an extra pan, which is always great. So yeah, I guess that's all I'm going to say, so let's just roll in new shades. Okay, I have my pretty random map ready. My minimum is 1 and my maximum is 1319. I got 2 Super Shocks from Colourpop, and then I used up one eyeshadow, so my numbers are up by 1 digit. So that's that. And for my new focus palette, I'm not going to show you it yet, but all I'm gonna say is it has 4 shades. So I'm just going to, after I roll in from my regular spreadsheet, I will change the maximum to 4 and we will roll in the shade, and I'll show you the palette once I talk about the other shade. Okay, let's just do it. So the first shade is 667, and the next one, let's just change it to 4. Then the next one from our focus palette will be, oh my god, I hate when it does that, will be 4. Okay, so let me go grab those shadows and we will talk about them. Okay, so I'm back with my 2 new shades and let's just talk about them. So I'm gonna start with the one that I rolled in from the general spreadsheet, and it was the number 667, and it comes from this palette, which is Flower Beauty Jungle Lights. If you followed my 2022 Penlos eyeshadows, this palette was, I was working on this, and I was working on an eyeshadow from this palette last year, so it came back to haunt us. So since this palette has a clear packaging, and also all the shade names on the back are written with like colors in like colorful circles, I already know what shade it is, so there's no like fun surprise. But the shade that I have under number 667 in my spreadsheet is called Tiger Lily, and Tiger Lily is, okay, how do I have to be very careful because I just realized I broke one of the shades somehow, but Tiger Lily is this coppery shade here. So yeah, right next to the one that I was working on last time. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice shade. I'm not the biggest fan of like coppers and stuff, so it's gonna be interesting, but I think it will work pretty well with Serene, so that's something. And the next shade I'm going to talk about comes from my new focus palette, which and it's the 4th shade from the focus palette. This palette doesn't have any names, and I'm not sure if the name of the palette that I found online is the correct name, but it's this one, which is a really old Yves Saint Laurent palette. I think it's called like Very YSL or something like that. I got it from my mom in exchange for a newer palette from my collection that I wasn't really using that much, and I was like, and my mom had this palette for a very long time, and she wasn't really using it much, so I thought, oh, I can give her a newer palette in exchange of this old one, which I could use up myself. So that's how I acquired it, and I haven't talked about this much, but I try to buy only cruelty-free makeup, and YSL isn't cruelty-free, so I want to use it up and not have it in my collection anymore. So okay, all this rambling aside, let me just see what shade it is. I think it is the pink matte, so let me just see. Yes, it is. Wow, look at me. Oops, this palette has brushes. I just forgot about those. I had to take them out. But yeah, so it's like this shade here. Yeah, this could be fun. It's like a nice cool tone pink. It's not really a matte, it's like a sequin shadow. Yeah, and I know it's not very pigmented. I don't remember how powdery it is, and I don't really know how deep these shadows are, so yeah, it would be interesting to see how long it'll take me to hit pan on it. But judging from this blush, which I have a hit pan on already, these pans are not very deep, so I think I might be able to hit pan on all these shades before the end of the year, so we can roll in a third focus palette. But yeah, so this is our new focus palette and our new shade. So let me just swatch out my new color story, and we can compare it to the last one, and later talk about my goals, stuff like that. So yeah. Okay, so I swatched out my new color story, and here's what it's looking like. So it's very interesting. Like, these 4 shades are like make sense together, but then this pink adds something a little different to this whole color story, but it kind of works. So I'm pretty happy with what I have going on. I had to scrape some of that pink to get it to show up on as a swatch, so yeah, just thought I'd mention that. And here is it in comparison to our last month color story. It's not that different, but I think I prefer the new one. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know which one do you like better. Yeah, so I'm very excited to use these colors together. Very curious to see what I come up with. Yeah, can't wait to use all of them together. Did I say that already? I think so. Before I rumble any longer, let me just move on to my goals. Both my goals for the year and the upcoming month. So after that, we can wrap up this video. Okay, so I think I'll start talking about my yearly goals and then move on to my goals for the next month. So if you're just clicking on this video and haven't seen either of my previous ones or my intro to this year's project, my goal is to have 100 pans in my collection, and currently, if I counted it all correctly, I have 69 pans, so I have 31 more to hit, and it's a lot. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but it's fun to have a little bit of struggle now and then. So yeah, yeah. I think that's all I'm going to say about my yearly goals. So let's move on to my upcoming months goals. Yeah, so just thought I'd show you my new color story again. I think I might be able to hit pan on the Dito shade because it looks to me like it is kind of, it's not that deep, and it's also very softly pressed, so I think I might be able to hit pan on it. Maybe the shimmer, because they are those Jungle Lights Flower Beauty shades, they're very soft and kind of like Super Shock shadows, so maybe that one, maybe the YSL shade. I don't have much help for these top 2, but I do like to make more progress on the Colourpop shade. So yeah, that is it. we'll see what the new month brings. So I guess that's all I'm going to say, so let's just wrap up this video. Okay, so that is it for today's update. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, let me know which color story you prefer. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's always very fun to read what you have to say. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a good day, and take care. Bye.